Gym battling is a lost art. This was the first and original competitive gameplay aspect of Pokémon GO, and it completely fizzled out over time. When Pokémon GO first released, gym battles were all the rage. People had a tribal mentality with each of their teams, and when it came to holding and taking over gyms, the territorial nature of the gameplay was engaging and riveting. Valor, Mystic, and Instinct, all three of these teams had their own individual cultures, which was shaped by their approach to taking gyms. Since then, the game has gotten more cooperative rather than competitive when it came to the three teams. Some people, especially newer players, may actually enjoy the cooperative aspect. With raid battles, Team Go Rocket, special research, trainer battles, and many other forms of recent gameplay additions, your team selection doesn't necessarily matter. Sure, you might be able to get the additional Premier Ball depending on your team, but much of what made Pokémon GO what it was just doesn't seem to be there anymore. Team rivalries were fun, gym takeovers were fun, the camaraderie behind each individual team was truly a unique experience, but the game as it is right now doesn't really have any of that anymore. But is that necessarily a bad thing? What if the current model for how teams function is actually better than how it was before? And if things were more fun before, should Niantic revert back to those early times, or is it too late? These are some of the questions I want to explore in this video essay. But real quick, if you end up enjoying this video, hit that like button and subscribe if it's your first time here, and don't forget that little bell as well so you always stay up to date whenever I upload new videos. And I want to give a huge shout out to my patrons on Patreon. You make this channel possible. If you want to experience some really nice perks, go and check out the link to my Patreon page in the description below. Alright, let's jump right into it.
I warned you. I've done it again. I warned you, but did you listen to me? Oh, no, you knew it all, didn't you? Oh, it's just a harmless little bunny, isn't it? Well, it's always the same. I always tell them. Shut up! Do they listen to me? Right. Oh, no.
You know, some would say Pokémon GO lost a lot of what made it special. Others would say Pokémon GO is much more refined and better than what it used to be. In my opinion, I think both are somewhat true. Let's put on our rose-tinted glasses and take a look back at what Pokémon GO used to be. Gameplay was pretty scarce. There wasn't a whole lot to do aside from catching a small variety of Pokémon and using them to attack or defend a gym. You could say these were much simpler times. There wasn't as many layers to the game as there is now. Gym battles were some great gameplay, even after the gym battling rework. Before raid battles, before any sort of team cooperative gameplay, there was a major rivalry that manifested itself naturally within the game. Instinct, Valor, and Mystic, these teams were constantly at odds with each other because of gyms. Trash talking was pretty commonplace. If you were involved in any local Pokémon GO social media group, you would typically run into the occasional rant from one team member targeting another. Sometimes you would see players brag about how their team took over the town. Other times you could see a call to action for a specific team to take down another team's gyms. Since gym battles were the only way to get Pokécoins for free in Pokémon GO, taking over gyms in your neighborhood was a high priority. It was the only form of endgame content that we had for a long time. Under the old gym battling system, collecting Pokécoins from gyms was a bit more straightforward than it is now. This meant that you would not only need some of the toughest attackers and defenders in your arsenal, you were also required to dedicate a ridiculous amount of time to take over or train up a gym. Because of that time and resource commitment, having your gym taken over by a person in another team had greater impact compared to how it is today. If one of your Pokémon was knocked out of a gym, it was infuriating. All of this led to a very engaging rivalry between the three teams. If you were Team Mystic, you found strength in the masses. Most people you knew were on the same team, and it was easy for you to sweep a town and flip it blue. When you did take a gym, it was not difficult to find support holding that gym down. If you were Team Valor, it was all about that Valor pride. Regardless if you were short on numbers, you felt the urge to paint the town red. There was a fierce sense of camaraderie and a fiery passion to make your team number one. If you were Team Instinct, you were the lovable underdogs. Instinct players typically had lower numbers in a given area, while defeating and holding gyms were likely more difficult for you. You were dedicated nonetheless and still wore your yellow colors with pride, even if you were the center of every meme. These were the feelings that somehow got lost over time. Nowadays, team identity is non-existent. Regardless if you are Instinct, Valor, or Mystic, your goals are just the same. Your team affiliation has absolutely no bearing on raiding, trainer battles, Team Go rocket battles, most of which is considered endgame content right now. Since gym battling is now overshadowed by other forms of gameplay, many players tend to ignore it. However, I still think gym battling is still vastly important for just about any player. If you are casual, this is your only source of Pokecoins outside of paying Niantic. If you are hardcore, gym battling can be a great source of experience points and hitting many of those metrics that count towards your unofficial world rankings. Brandon Tan and King didn't become the top players by ignoring gym battles. Now of course, it's not just the new gameplay mechanics that contributed to the decline of gym battles. Many players who play today probably aren't even aware at this point that gym battling was a completely different system at one point. Just before raids were introduced into Pokemon Go, there was a complete rework of the gym battling system, and this really was the start of a really huge decline in gym battling. While the gameplay mechanics behind battling didn't necessarily change, the way in which you defend and hold gyms did. Nowadays, you are essentially rewarded for having your Pokemon knocked out of a gym after a certain period of time. You didn't need to paint your entire town your team color anymore. Nowadays, you just need to hold down 1 or 2 gyms for a couple of hours in order to get your daily allotment of free Pokecoins. In some cases, you may be even required to coordinate with members of the opposite team in order to get your Pokecoins. I can't tell you how many times I asked members of Instinct or Mystic to knock out one of my Pokemon out of a gym so that I could get my coins for that day. This was a steep contrast to the old gym system, where the more gyms you and your team held, the more you gained Pokecoins from them. There was no berry feeding, no micromanaging, none of that. You simply attacked as many gyms as you could, and you tried to hold down as many of them as you could. Many have argued that the current gym system is far superior to the old one, and some would even say that it's a lot more fair, but it just isn't the same. A lot of what made Pokemon Go fun and unique early on, it just simply doesn't exist anymore, and it really has to do with how gym battling lost its relevance over time. So that leads me to think about this question: should Niantic create a resurgence for gym battles by adding new mechanics and rewards, or should they add Pokecoin rewards to some of the current gameplay to put the final nail in the coffin to the past? It certainly would be interesting if Niantic were to completely move on from the past iterations of Pokemon Go. It certainly can be argued that Pokemon Go can never, nor should it ever, return to what it was before. But I do think that certain elements that made Pokemon Go so great in the past could actually return with new and old mechanics being implemented into the game. I cannot see why Niantic shouldn't have multiple kinds of gyms in the game. I really like the idea of there being 2 kinds of gyms. One that is very much the current conventional gyms, and another that represents the previous gym system that we used to have. Imagine this for a moment. Within a given town, you have a cluster of regular gyms throughout the area, but at the center of that town, let's say at one of its highest populated regions, you have sort of a super gym. This gym has 10 slots and follows the old gym battling system. Whichever team holds that particular gym will have a damage buff to gym battles, raid battles, Team Go rocket battles, and other various bonuses in a given radius around that gym. This means that if a town's central gym is claimed by a certain team, then that team somewhat claims the town itself. This would essentially bring back the gang turf warfare that we kind of saw before. It would be a fun reintroduction of the team rivalries and give players an incentive to be a part of a certain team. Now, of course, this is just a concept, and I recognize that this sort of gym system would have major balance issues and technical issues. After all, not every town has central points of interests, and Instinct is still the underdog team in terms of numbers. However, it's this sort of outside-the-box thinking that I really wish I saw more from Niantic. The old gym battle system and the team rivalry that spawned from it is something that I deeply miss, and it's something that really shouldn't have ever been lost with Pokemon Go. Now don't get me wrong, I do think the game is much better now compared to how it was at launch. Niantic has certainly done a phenomenal job adding fun and engaging gameplay that keeps the game interesting. However, that still doesn't take away from the fact that some of the original gameplay elements that made Pokemon Go so great was lost over time. Regardless if it's another gym rework or through something new, I really hope Niantic reintroduces team rivalries in the future. Who knows? We'll just have to wait and see. Hey guys, before I leave, I have to give a little bit of a spiel. I mean, when it comes to the YouTube algorithm, it's extremely difficult to gauge how successful you can be on YouTube. Like, there are some times where I have a ton of views on my videos, and there are some days where I just have no views on my videos, and it really comes down to the YouTube algorithm. And there's a lot of times where I get dinged for some of the songs that I pick or some of the footage that I show, and unfortunately it's because YouTube's copyright system is a little bit broken. But if you want to support this channel financially, I highly suggest you check out my Patreon. A link to it is in the description below. Your support definitely helps me out, and it helps support this channel because I would love to crank out more videos and increase the quality, and for that to happen, I do need your help. So definitely go and check out that link. And yeah, big shout out and big thank you to all of you for supporting my channel. I hope you enjoyed this video, everyone. If you did, make sure you smash that like button, subscribe if it's your first time here, and don't forget that little bell as well. Check out the links in the description below. I'm Count Jinsula, and I'll catch you all later.